you. Thank you for gathering. I'm Yukie Mokuo. I'm the UNICEF representative in Lebanon. Today, we talk about children. We talk especially about children in Lebanon. I'm very grateful that so many of you gathered to hear me today, because what I tell you today is very important information for today's Lebanon. 20th of November is World Children's Day. Every year, we normally celebrate this particular day because this is a day to celebrate children and their rights. However, I need to tell you, this year I'm very sad. I'm very sad because all the information I share you today is not about celebration anymore. All those years I have worked for UNICEF, I have not encountered such a year that we are so concerned about our children. Children is our future, and children is our soul. So please listen to me, and I'm ready to answer to any of your questions. But also, what is important about this Day of Children, because this is a day to hear the voice of children. I'm very happy you are the ones who can amplify the voice of children and young people. So please do convey the message to the world, to the public, what is important for us and for children of today in Lebanon. So we are presenting the results of a poll among families who are telling us how the ever-worsening crisis continues to have terrible impacts on their children and the most vulnerable. The situation of today in Lebanon, the results of our assessment really shows it's affecting children's nutrition, their health, their education, and of course their protection. And today, this means their future, children's future, are at a very significant stake. But first of all, I would like you to listen to them. So we have a short video with children, which I can project now. And then the mothers, fathers, young people, and all nationalities who live in Lebanon are voicing them. Let us watch the video first.
الوضع سيء جدا جدا.
يعني بهدلة فقر كتير مش شوي.
نحن ساكنين بالمخيم، ما بدنا شي غير بيوتنا.
كان بالشهر بدي 300-400 ألف بكفوني، هلا بدي 3-4 مليون ما بكفوني.
هذا الوضع من 4 سنين ما كان هيك، كنا عايشين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
بشتغل بس تعتم في البيت.
ويوميا من الصبح للمغرب 15,000.
يعني بالمواصلات، الأكل والشرب، كل شيء، ما في شيء هين علينا صراحة.
هلا لا عم بقدر ادفع الأجار، ولا عم بقدر كمان أقوم بأولادي، ولا أقدر أمن لهم أبسط شيء.
مركزين على الزيتون وزعتر وزيت، يعني 3/4 كنا. إن اللحوم صرنا شهرين ما فات البيت.
نجيب حطب ونخبز ونطبخ على النار، لأنه غاز هلا عندي أنا إلي الوحيد صار لي هلا 19 يوم ما في عندي عنيد غاز.
يعني هلا الفرار 70-80 ألف، كيلو اللحمة 130، يعني ها مع السرجة يذكر اسمه.
أنا أوقات ببعت ولادي بلا أكل، يعني الشغلة ما بإيدي، أنا بعرف هذا الشيء كثير بيحرقني، الشغلة ما بإيدي.
على الدكتور ما أقدر آخذه، أقول لك يعني وين أروح؟ أقرب شيء على الصيدليات، إنه أرخص.
هون ما عم بقدر أمن شيء، يعني رغم إنه سكنت هون بالمخيم بس ما عم بقدر، يعني عن جد أدوية ما عم نقدر نأمن.
يعني كنت روح أنا على المدرسة، كنت بصف الثالث، طلعت لهلا ما شفتت.
بيجوا على البيت ما بيقدروا يدرسوا، ما في لا انترنت لا كهرباء.
عندي بنت شاطرة، يعني مش قادرة أحطها بمدرسة ولا قادرة أأمن لها أوتوكار.
هلا جايين على فصل الشتاء، لا في حطب ولا في مازوت. برميل المازوت بدهم حقه 150 160 دولار، يعني 3 4 مليون. اكيد 100% ما فيني اشتري ولا عندي استطاعه اجيب تنكه مازوت، لانه انا عم جيب تنكه مازوت عم الغي مصروف الشهر كلياته بدل المازوت، من خبز من خضره من كل شيء يعني.
Our children, regardless of their nationality. When I talk about children, it's every single child in this country. I don't differentiate Lebanese children or Syrian refugees or Palestinians. For UNICEF, children are children. And every child in this country are equally suffering. Hundreds of thousands are going to bed hungry. They are not receiving the health care they need, and they are unable to attend the school. All this together also brings more violence against children and women, abuse and exploitation. I have met many of those children. I myself go to visit the field. I meet again all children, Lebanese, Syrians, Palestinians. From every community I visit, I hear the same voice. They are suffering. I never seen a child who was malnourished in this country before, but recently I witnessed by myself a child who is really suffering from the malnutrition. So those desperate mothers and fathers who are being forced to take disparate measures only because they need to survive. This is not the first time that I'm speaking to you. You may remember a year ago, December 2020, I was speaking to the press after the 3 months of the Beirut blast about a very, very concerning situation. We also spoke again this summer. We issued a report, Children in the Future on the Line, that was also based on the survey among families across the Lebanon. I alarmed how challenging, how serious, how concerning the situation was. And today, again, I'm very sad to tell you that the situation has even got worsened. So the situation which we reported back in summer, we thought that was almost hitting the bottom, but today we face a situation it's even more seriously concerning children's situation. Lebanon is very sadly in free fall, and it's quickly hitting rock bottom. The continued multiple crises, political, economic, COVID-19 pandemic, you name any, but this is crisis of children that threatened to leave almost every child in the country very vulnerable and very much in need. You have heard the recent visit of UN Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights. The UN's most recent estimates on multidimensional poverty. But also you heard the World Bank's projections that tell us the situation has dramatically worsened and will continue to deteriorate if urgent action is not taken. Now, I need to give you some of the numbers. More than 53% of the families surveyed in October said that at least one child skipped a meal in the past 30 days because the family did not have enough food. This is an alarming increase compared to 36.7% back in April. Close to half the households reported having insufficient water. In 35% of the cases, the reason is because of the increased cost. 30.6% of families have been forced to cut expenses on education. This is another increase in comparison to 26.3% 6 months ago. The proportion of surveyed families who sent children to work rose from 8% to almost 12%. This is very alarming. One child out of 8 is working. And the percentage of Lebanese children who required primary health care and did not receive it rose from 18% to 35%, meaning it almost doubled in 6 months period. So this UNICEF's survey show increase in families who sold household items to buy food on credit or borrow money to afford food. They all reported how the skyrocketing prices of medicines prevent many children from receiving the treatment they need. Besides 2.8 million people who continue to be affected by water shortage, and over 700,000 children cannot make it back to school. This is a children's crisis. Again, you hear all this headline news talking about economic crisis, financial crisis, and the political crisis. But let us face it, it is a crisis of children which we cannot afford. Urgent action is needed. The needs are massive, and the cost of inaction is too high. Unless we act now, every child's future in Lebanon is at stake. Children must receive enough food to grow healthy and happy. Children need to get their vaccines and medicines. Children must receive all the support they need to go back to school. Children must be protected from any form of violence, abuse, and exploitation. Children should not be sent to work on the street. Lebanon's government needs to take swift action to safeguard children and the country's future. A major expansion of social protection measures is very necessary, ensuring access to quality education for every child, and strengthening primary health care and child protection services are no longer avoidable. UNICEF is always ready to enhance our support, and we are already expanding our program with the support of our donors. UNICEF is currently providing cash support for children in US dollars. UNICEF supports the water establishment, all water establishment in the country to keep the water flowing. We also support the health system by providing supplies and vaccines. You may have seen that last week we delivered 97 tons of medication to the country. Of course, UNICEF supports the education system to help children to return to learning. We continue to support the COVID-19 response. And the UNICEF is also part of the reconstruction efforts after the port blast in Beirut, including schools, the quarantine hospital, and the central drug warehouse. And we work every day to support children at risk of violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. We have more details of UNICEF work in the folders which you received today, and you can also write by email to us to question. Now, are we going to have another video? Yes, we're going to finish my statement with another video. Just one more video, please. you any more. I think it's quite clear what we are concerned about. You can receive those 2 videos if you're interested. And we have 2 reports, which is about children, and another one is about UNICEF's action. So let me thank you again. As we speak, it's not only that the needs are massive, it's very serious. If you think about the child of today, if we don't act now, if those children do not grow up as they need, the country is going to be in a serious crisis in 5-10 years' time. So we cannot waste even a minute. As I said in the beginning, please disseminate this voice. My voice is a voice of children, and your voice is going to represent the voice of children. So I thank you very much for your attention. Now I'm ready to take any of your questions. Yes, please.
I have 2 questions, ma'am. So you clearly stated, as it's well known, UNICEF is taking care of every child in Lebanon. But even the pool is about all children in Lebanon. Do you have any numbers about more detailed about the Lebanese children, the Palestinian children, the Syrian children, and can we have it? Can it be public to everyone? That's my first question. My second question is that we all know that the Lebanese authority is helpless. It's not able to help its own people. When you call to action, who are you addressing? Who is the parties you are calling to help? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have those figures of poverty. Now, ESCOR, our UN sister agency, is saying 82% of Lebanese households are under multidimensional poverty. UNHCR, WFP, and UNICEF, we collectively conduct assessment among Syrian refugees, which is showing more than 90% of Syrian households are under extreme poverty. So again, I think that these are the clear figures which shows how every household is really at the crisis, and some of the numbers which I elaborated today is only representing poverty is not only about income of the household. When I talk about the multidimensional poverty, that includes how much access to education, health, such services are affected, and how much children are exploited. As I spoke, 1 out of 8 child is now on child labor. So who I am calling for? I'm calling for action from everybody. Child rights needs to be protected by every segment of the society. I call for action from the government, of course. I was presenting as a group with other UN region coordinator and other UN agencies together on the other day about National Social Protection Strategy proposal to Prime Minister. We are calling governmental commitment, have a strong policy and strategy so that all social protection measures can be in place. So such a policy framework is very important. On a day-to-day basis, we are in discussion with line ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Social Affairs especially, because we want to make sure all those social services needs to be in place. You said that the government is not effective, but we still expect that the government provide required basic services to children. We are here to support them behind with our technical support and all level of assistance, but at the same time, I call action from everybody, so it's not only about the government. It has to come from everybody, civil society, people in the community, even the family, although under distress, there are one small step which can change the practice for children. I'll give you one small example. We are also having a campaign about child complementary feeding for young child and infants, because many women are screaming and looking for infant formula which is very expensive and the family cannot afford. But we know at the same time, women in Lebanon do not breastfeed, or not knowing the best way of complementary feeding for young children. There is an inexpensive way of feeding your child if you know how to do it properly. In case of most serious cases, we refer you to some kind of access to the infant formula, but don't look for infant formula in the beginning. Look for the information how you can best feed your child. This is just an example. So my answer to you, that's why mothers, fathers, even under distress, you can do things differently. And we will refer you to a call center who can guide you. We need a community and the civil society to support those families. And of course, we expect government to undertake their responsibility in providing services to children. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Marie Haj from Lebanon newspaper. You said you were asking the Lebanese government to take some steps. Did they take any step? Did they present any strategy about it?
Well, again, I give you a few examples. So last week, we presented the National Social Protection Strategy. I was glad that the Prime Minister immediately signed a decree on technical committee so that this strategy can be reviewed by the government, and we are expecting the government to endorse such a strategy, because without a strategy, what kind of more measures to come? The strategy has a very comprehensive pillar of social protection. I talked about the cash assistance. So social cash assistance is one important pillar. Social services, it's not only cash. The social workers from SDCs, that's another important pillar. Access to basic services, health, education, and such, another important pillar. But also we have a National Social Security Fund, contributory fund, that also needs to be reformed. And all protection and the engagement with the labor force. So these are the 5 important pillars of social protection scheme, which we presented to the government as a proposal, but we are now expecting government to review and eventually endorse such a strategy. Of course, other sectors we work very closely, for instance, the Ministry of Education. Now I'm happy to tell you that the school is open. So children are back in school. Behind, there has been a lot of efforts made by MEHE, of course. We have been in the day-to-day discussion. As I said, that we supported that the learning books, we supported that some of the facilities for the schools, other agencies such as World Bank, UNESCO cooperating together. But I must say that the Ministry of Education, of course, took the very important decision, and not only first shift Lebanese children, now second shift children are also back in school. So I cannot say that the government is not doing anything. They are also trying their best, and we are here to support them. Any more questions?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What about the responsibility of the international community also?
Well, I am happy to report you because we have a number of key donors, such as US government, EU, Germany, Nordics, Japanese. I cannot name many, but about 20 governments are sponsoring the UNICEF program. I'm very grateful that those governmental donors continue. And not only, there are private partners. Diaspora family also helping us. We have a number of worldwide network of private donors who is helping our program. So I'm sure, but one of the reasons of our appeal is to really let world know what is happening in Lebanon. It's not only about other countries. I know, such as places like Afghanistan or Sudan, Syria, Yemen, there are so many crises happening in the world. But I'm afraid Lebanon is not the exception. So it's very important that we get those support from international community. But also, before I close, I want to appeal one more very important thing. Amazing violation is a gun violence in this country. I cannot stand anymore. Every day I'm receiving this information, shooting is there, shooting is that. That's not acceptable. Do not expose children to gun violence. This year, already 10 children maimed, injured. A few are even killed by stray bullets. I can tell you, I'm very honest, even stray bullet hit. So, please, I know everybody is desperate, but that's something really at the last resort. We cannot expose children to such a violence. Please keep them safe. And safeguarding children is also very important in this crisis time. Yes.
I want Sandra, the anchor and presenter of Agenda 2030, Radio Lebanon. I want to ask you about your evaluation concerning the press and the reporters, how they are covering this problematic you are talking about today, because we've talked the last year that there is a misunderstanding maybe between journalism in Lebanon in relation with the UN in general, because they think they are always focusing on the Syrian or the refugees' problems only.
Thank you, very good question. Well, a lot more is needed. That's why we are speaking to you today, right? Why? We do understand. Everybody analyzes this is an economic crisis. It's a financial crisis. And of course the politics. That is always hit in the headlines of the newspapers. However, if you really think about the cost, what is happening in this society, in this country, it's about children and the most vulnerable people. That's why I appeal to you, please convey the voice of children who is hungry, who is working on the street. You see so many children begging and digging the garbage on the street. Would you like to see children doing that? Of course not. I'm very happy. Every time we appeal, there are a lot of inquiries from the journalists. So I thank you for that. Over this summer, we reported a lot about children and the water crisis. So we have been very grateful for your attention. But I take this opportunity to appeal to you. I think we really need to look at the social dimension of the crisis, especially what is happening on children, again, regardless their nationalities. Thank you for the question. So if there are no more questions, we can close. But again, I'm thanking you. So in the report, you get all these numbers. You can have access to our video, of course. And if you have any more follow-up questions, I'm available, and my colleagues are available. Today, I had my experts. I didn't have time to let them speak, but I have these experts, child protection, social protection, education, and the health. They can give you a lot more detailed responses to your questions as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. You want water? Yes, no.